Go ahead and get started on the advertising and public relations panel. For those of you who are just joining us, hello, my name is Mary Vaughn. I'm a senior communication major with a leadership minor here at UND. I'm from Hastings, Minnesota, a smaller town a little south of the cities. I'd like to welcome you all today to the annual Communication Appreciation Day career conference sponsored by Northwestern Mutual. I'm the current department campaign coordinator intern for the event, and I'll be serving as the moderator for the advertising and public relations session today. Over the past year, we've been planning this virtual career conference as well as the alumni mentorship program to really showcase our awesome comm department and what a degree in communication can do for you. At this time, if all the attendees could introduce yourself in the chat box, you can just type your name or affiliation, if high school student versus if you're a career job, or if you're here at UND. In addition, please remember to mute yourselves until the end of the presentations, then we'll have a short Q&A. Then addition, if there's any high school students here, I just want to remind you guys about the high school student scholarship opportunity. For those who are planning to attend UND with a declared major in communication, I'll link the opportunity in the chat box below, but once the scholarship entries are reviewed, there's potential to win a $1,000 scholarship award to a student who either chooses one or all the discussions to summarize. So again, if you're interested, just refer to that document. I'll post it in just a couple minutes in the chat box in a little bit once we get started. But as I mentioned before, I touched on the alumni mentorship program. So that's also been in coordination with this virtual career conference today in a database program who is made up of our UND Communication Department alumni who are willing to volunteer their time and expertise to help the undergraduate students in the communication department kind of further their professional development and growth, especially inspired by this past year with COVID canceling many internship opportunities for professional growth and guidance, as well as networking connections. So the program was developed, and it's a mutual matching program to match the undergraduate student with an alumni, and they can further the conversation and develop a mentorship relationship. So without further ado, we can get into the advertising and public relations session. I'll introduce our panels. Today we're going to be starting with Allie Harries. She's a 2016 grad working as a public relations manager for Ameriprise Financial in Wayzata, Minnesota. After Allie, we'll have Tracy Edwards. She is a 2017 grad and is working as a communications specialist for Ad Monkeys here in Grand Forks. And finally, our last panelist will be Jess Shocker, a 2018 grad who's working as a graphic designer and photo art director for SGS & Co. in Minneapolis. So after our three panelists share their presentations with you, we'll move into the Q&A. Where you can type questions in the chat box. You can send them to me privately or unmute yourself and ask away. So Allie, you are all good to begin your presentation.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mary. Can everybody hear me okay? Perfect. All right, so I have a couple slides, so let me get those pulled up real quick. All right. So yeah, thank you all for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today. So like Mary said, my name is Allie Harries, and I figured the easiest way to go about this is to just start by telling you a little bit about myself and what I do, and then sort of go back in time and walk through my journey to get here. So I'm originally from Lakeville, Minnesota, a suburb south of the Twin Cities. And I graduated in 2016 from UND, and then I returned to the Twin Cities and now live in Wayzata, Minnesota. So on the screen is a picture of me and my little family. It's my husband, Mark, and my puppy, Ralphie. And I'm also currently pursuing my MBA at Bemidji State University through their distance program right now. So that's been keeping me busy during quarantine since we were already virtual. So next slide. So what do I do? So I'm currently a public relations manager at Ameriprise Financial, which is headquartered in downtown Minneapolis. So, I mean, since the start of the pandemic, we've been working virtually like most of the world, but I'm hoping to go back soon. So the nature of PR is that you never know what a day might bring, but there are three primary and steady components of my job. And the first is vetting media opportunities and media training Ameriprise financial advisors. So we have about 10,000 financial advisors across the country. And when any of them get an opportunity with their local newspaper, news channel, radio station, podcast, you name it, they reach out to our team. And so our job is then to vet that opportunity and give them approval, or in some cases, unfortunately, denials, and then media train them for that opportunity. So the training essentially is us outlining some of the compliance do's and don'ts, what not to say, what to say, as well as some of the best practices and general tips and tricks for working with reporters and making your interviews to position you as the advisor and the company in the best light possible. So you never know what's going to come through our inbox and the opportunities that these advisors get. So it really keeps us on our toes with that one. The second is working with our markets and economics spokespeople at the company. Our market strategists and economists write research and commentary on the markets and economy on a daily basis. And my job is to pitch their expertise to reporters at publications like Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, CNBC, for both print and broadcast opportunities. So on the slide, I just added a couple screenshots of some of the recent broadcast opportunities that we've secured with our spokespeople. And they're amazing to work with and such experts. So this is a part of my job that I really enjoy. Plus, I was really clueless about the markets and economy previous to this job. So it's really made me become aware and an expert very quickly in order to do this work. And then finally, probably one of the largest parts of my role is media monitoring and reporting for the company. So essentially my job is to monitor and report wherever Ameriprise is mentioned in the news. It's a critical function of any PR program at any company across the country, really. So we need to be the first ones to see a story so we can then track and respond if necessary. I mean, oftentimes these stories are proactive activities. So for instance, if I pitch out commentary from our economist to the Wall Street Journal and they picked up a quote and ran it, when I see that come through, there's probably no other action I need to take there because it was proactive. I knew it was coming. But reactive hits also happen, especially at a Fortune 500 company like Ameriprise. Unfortunately, the reality is there's usually a lawsuit of some kind going on, especially when you have advisors that are working with clients and, things get messy. So it's really important that when a story is written or something is mentioned that's more negative about Ameriprise, that we're on top of that so we can take whatever action is necessary. And then in addition to catching the stories, part of my job then is reporting them. So I need to be able to report and quantify where Ameriprise is in the news. And sometimes that's just flagging a story for a leader and saying FYI, where other times I'm sending more formal reports, which I do on a daily, monthly, and quarterly basis. So because ultimately our goal is to increase the volume and the quality of stories that positively reflect Ameriprise and the work that we do. So in a nutshell, that is my day-to-day, but you really never know what's going to happen when you work in PR. So how did I get here? I was a communications major right from the beginning. There's a picture of me and Dr. Lee at my graduation. And I'm so thankful to what I learned in the program and how much it prepared me for my career. Dr. Lee came to UND my senior year, and I had 2 classes with him. And I'm not just saying this because I know he's on this call right now, but they were my favorites. Not necessarily because of the content, but more because his passion was infectious. And I'm just so excited to see how much this program has elevated since the time that I graduated. And I would say, I just think it's really important that if you aren't already, to take advantage of all the clubs and part-time jobs that you can at UND so you can really hone the skills you hope to use in your future career. I mean, those jobs and clubs really can help you be more competitive when it comes to securing interviews and giving you talking points to use in those interviews. So if you're in a club right now and you're starting to interview for jobs, just really think about what are those aspects of that club, what did you do, and how can you turn that into a story that you could tell in an interview to make yourself stand out. So for instance, I knew that the roles I would probably be applying for, even though I didn't know exactly what they were, would probably be writing intensive. So during my time at UND, I took a writing center consultant job, so that I would be able to use that first to really gain more skill in my writing abilities, but then also have something to talk to in interviews. And I found out after the fact that that job was the specific reason that I ended up getting the internship that I did. So next, talk through internships and job searches. So during my time at UND, both in classes and through various organizations, I had an opportunity to visit and learn about various ad, PR agencies and other companies. And through that experience, I personally determined that I wanted to go more the corporate in-house route versus a job in an agency. And that decision completely depends on the person. I have many friends who love working in an agency setting and have absolutely no interest in corporate, but I was the opposite. So I just encourage you to do research on the difference between the two and all of the different sort of work settings you can work in, and try to determine which you think would be the best fit for you. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't take a job in an agency and later switch to in-house or vice versa, but as you're first applying for jobs, it's just really helpful to have a sense for what you think would be best for you so you can start to narrow that search. So for me, when I started to look for internships, I think it was like the fall of my junior year, I set up alerts on Google and LinkedIn. You can actually set alerts for the type of jobs you're interested in, so you can find them as soon as they're posted. That was really helpful, especially in a competitive environment like we are in today. So if you're currently job searching, I highly encourage you to get some of those alerts set up if you haven't already. So when I was looking for jobs, one of the alerts that came through was for an internal summer internship job at Ameriprise. Oh, I jumped the gun. And so I applied for it, and I went through 4 interviews to get the job, which at the time I was like, that's insane. This is an internship. Why is this so intense? But what I didn't realize at the time was that that particular internship at Ameriprise is a feeder into something called the Leadership Development Program at Ameriprise, which is for recent graduates. So if you perform well during your summer internship, there's a good chance that you'll be offered a full-time role in that program at the end of the summer, which is great because it took a lot of pressure off going into senior year, already knowing you have a job lined up after graduation, which I was incredibly thankful for. The program itself, just so it's kind of an interesting program. It's 18 months with 3 6-month rotations within marketing communications at the company, which is a really great way to dip your toes into different areas of marketing and communications, kind of figure out what you like and don't like. There aren't a whole lot of these rotational programs, but they are out there. So if it's something you're interested in, just do some research and see if there's any programs in your area of where you're hoping to work after graduation. So for me personally, the 3 rotations I went through were internal communications, public relations, and then consumer marketing. And I know the slide is kind of ugly, but I just clipped it from my resume to sort of show my job progression, because it is a lot of different jobs in a short amount of time, which is great, but hard to explain in a short amount of time. But after I rotated through all 3, I ultimately knew, in the back of my mind that PR was sort of where I wanted to end up someday. But when you're done with your 18 months in the program, you post out into full-time roles, and you're usually just looking for any open role within Ameriprise, and then you apply internally. Or in some cases, through your networking during the program, sometimes a team will actually open up a role specifically for you on their team. And that's what happened with my first job out of the program. Ameriprise had just acquired a company, and they needed somebody who could support the communications needs that surround an acquisition. So that is where I first went after I came out of this program. And after about a year and a half or so, the PR team that I had been on was able to get a manager role open for me on their team, and I was able to move into that role. So it was actually much quicker than I thought. In my mind, I thought I wouldn't be in PR for quite a long time. So I was really excited about that opportunity. And I've now been in this particular position I talked about earlier for about 2.5 years, and I love it. the great thing about PR is that no 2 days are the same. So you just really need to stay on your toes, and the learning never stops, which is really exciting. So I would say if there are one or two things that I've learned through my experience, it's that it's just as important to learn about what you like as it is to learn about what you don't like. So you may have a job or be in a role that isn't your favorite, but you can really still make the most out of it. I think as long as you take time to really reflect. So if you're having a tough day, you're just one of those days you're like, I don't like this job. What is it that you don't like? If you're having a good day, what is it that you do like? Write it down. Then when it's time that you feel like you need to make a change and a career change or a job change, go back to that list. Compare it to the job description you're looking at and make sure, is there items on there, a lot of items that you put on your I don't like list? Maybe that job's not for you, or the things that you do like, is it matching up really well with the description? It's all a learning process. And I think, the first job we take out of college, I was the same way. It's easy to have in your mind that you're looking for your dream job. And I would say that the majority of people don't get their dream job straight out of college. Maybe they do, but most of us don't. And so it's really important to just think of it as a stepping stone. You're trying to figure out exactly what you want, and the chances that you're going to find that straight out of the gate is pretty low. So it's just all about having the right mindset. Just work hard and make the most of every opportunity that you get. And I just also want to say that I love networking. I love mentoring. I'm always open to review resumes, cover letters, help with interview prep. If you just need somebody to toss you some questions like a mock interview, I'm always open to it. So please don't hesitate to reach out. I have my email up on the slide. So if you want to write that down and ever reach out, I'm always happy to help. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Allie. All right, so our next speaker will be Tracy Edwards. Tracy, you are all good to take it away. I think you're muted, Tracy.
Okay. So like Mary said, my name is Tracy Edwards. I'm a communication specialist at AdMonkeys, which is an advertising agency in Grand Forks. And I guess I will start by talking a little bit about my college experience. I actually started my freshman year not knowing what I wanted to do. I was undecided, so I was taking a bunch of the general classes that you have to take no matter what your major is, and a couple of those were communication classes. And I just fell in love with the subject and the professors. The classes were very interactive and discussion-based, which was different from all the other classes I was taking. So at the end of my freshman year, I declared my major as communication. And another thing I really liked about the classes were how hands-on they were, especially the upper level classes. We got to work with a lot of real-life organizations. For example, I think I worked with Rhombus Guys, Stable Days Youth Ranch, Golden Valley Flax. And that's great because you can take like the skills you're learning in the classroom and then apply them to real life businesses. And it's also great for resume building too, because, as college students, you don't have a lot of career experience, but you have that classroom experience that you can put on your resume. And so that's a really great thing as well. And then with that, internships. I highly, highly, highly recommend an internship if you can get one. I worked at a local nonprofit my junior year, and my main task there was to help promote Giving Hearts Day, which some of you might be familiar with, but if you're not, it's a 24-hour online day of giving. So I got to run their social media, send out email blasts, create postcards. I even got to create a couple of short videos, thanks to the skills I learned in my video production class. And overall, it was just a really great experience. I think we were able to raise like $40,000. And at the end of my internship, I actually got asked if I wanted to stay on and continue to work part-time for them. So I worked there the rest of my college career. And not only is an internship a great experience, but it's also great for networking. Obviously, I met my employer and my coworker who would later become references, but also I met board members, volunteers, donors who are influential in our community. So internships are just a great way to start building your network. And another thing, another way UND helps you start building your network is by having you interview people in the field. And that is actually kind of how I got my job where I am at now. My senior year, I was actually taking a couple of classes in the art department as well. And one of those was graphic design. And my professor happened to be the owner of Ad Monkeys. And so I asked him if there was anybody in his company I could interview for my social media strategy class. And he said yes. So I interviewed her, it went great. And on the last day of class, my professor asked me if I wanted to come work for his company. So I said yes, and that was actually my fall semester of senior year. So I worked there part-time spring semester, and then eventually ended up going full-time, and I've been there for 4 years now. So what do I do as a communication specialist at an advertising agency? Well, I wear a lot of hats, especially since we are a smaller company. We kind of all help out wherever we're needed. But I would say a big portion of my daily task is social media. I have a handful of clients, some that we post for daily, some weekly, some that we just help out with events, promotions, or if new clients come to us and they want to get started on social media, we can help guide them through which platforms they should be on, what fits their budget, all of that kind of stuff. Another one of my tasks is copywriting, whether that's press releases, newsletters, copy for brochures or websites, any text that needs to be written, I help with that. I also do some photography and photo editing, a little bit of graphic design, website development. We can help with everything from like content organization, determining what information is going to go on what pages so that users can easily flow through your site and everything makes sense, to obviously actually developing the site and maintaining it throughout the coming months and years. And then event planning, which kind of entails everything. It's the social media, it's writing the press release, you need someone there taking photos during it, the actual details of the event itself. Like, for example, we had a groundbreaking last fall and we needed to order shovels with the logo on it. We needed hard hats with the logo on it. We needed a stage and a podium. So all that kind of stuff, all the nitty gritty details, we help with that as well. And I would say the biggest perk of working at an advertising agency is the variety. You just don't get that working in-house. We see a variety of clients in a variety of industries. We've worked with everything from retail companies to restaurants, hospitality, agriculture, construction, realty, medical facilities, insurance companies, higher education, nonprofits. We've seen it all, we work with it all. And it's fun because it keeps you on your toes. You're always learning something new, and make sure you never get stagnant in your position. So that's by far my favorite part of working at an advertising agency. And that's all I have for now. So I will pass it back over to Mary.
Thank you, Tracy. Next up, our last panelist will be Jess Shocker. Jess, you are all good to go.
Awesome, thank you. Can everybody hear me? I just have my AirPod in and I want to make sure it's working. Okay, cool. Let's see. All right, so hi, I'm Jess Shocker. I was a part of the communications department at UND back in 2018. I graduated. So we'll just get into it. I was a communications major and a graphic design minor. I was originally a graphic design major and then decided that I wanted a little more variety and options as far as my career went. So I kind of did a little bit of a flip-flop. In my time at UND, I was a participant in Advertising Club, for which I was the creative chair. And then I also was a teaching assistant for Dr. Lee. So as far as like getting involved on campus, advertising club was a big one. Kind of like Ali had mentioned earlier, this is a really great way to get some hands-on experience, and to kind of build your toolbox as you get ready to go into the workforce. So advertising club was a big one for me. So for those who don't know, you participate in the National Student Advertising Competition. There is a client that is assigned, and then you basically have a creative brief you go through and build a full campaign for that client. So the year that I was participating, we did Ocean Spray, and they just wanted to make cranberries appealing to millennials, basically. And we didn't do too bad, actually. It was our first time with like all new people that had gone. We did third for like our overall graphics campaign book or presentation, and then fourth overall, which was really awesome. So that experience was really good. If anybody is still, if anybody's not graduating and has this opportunity maybe next year, definitely take advantage of it. Super, super helpful and hands-on experience. And then I was a TA for Dr. Lee. This isn't the campaign that I worked on with him, but I did this with Dr. Kim. I didn't have any visuals to show for what I did with Dr. Lee's class, but we did a street fair campaign working with the Downtown Development Association of Grand Forks, which was really cool. And at the time it was a new event. And so it was neat to kind of, everybody kind of chipped in ideas and ways to make it interesting and get students to attend, and really make sure that they had a successful event. So that was something that, you know, our professors gave us the opportunity to work with real clients and really be in a professional setting while we were in school. And those of us who really took it seriously, I think, took a lot from it. So definitely, as you're approaching your more senior level classes, again, if you're still in school, take them seriously because they help you so much. And that is something that has definitely helped me on my path as well. So after I graduated, life kind of happened. I got really sick, and my professional career kind of got delayed, and I was really struggling to find a job. And it was pretty discouraging, and you kind of get to a point where, you know, you just start throwing resumes everywhere just to see what you get, as far as like an interview or an opportunity. So it took me a year and a half after graduation to land a job in my field. So that is where I work now. Marks is a design branch of a design agency. We are global. We have studios and offices all over the world, and we have clients from, you know, hundreds of countries, and it was very overwhelming, but very cool at the same time to be able to land a position and actually start to utilize my skill set. So I was hired as a junior graphic designer, also kind of similar to Tracy and Ali's story, starting kind of more, you know, lower level, kind of learning the basis of your job, and they kind of train you and mentor you, which is really awesome. And then eventually landed me a regular graphic design position, and then also a photo art directing role as well. So these are just a few of the clients that our Minneapolis studio touches. Target is a big one. If you've seen any of the Good and Gather products in store, we did all the design work for that. Pearson's Candy is a really fun one. Salted Nut Roll, Nut Goody, Mint Patties. I helped with this project that's shown on the screen there when it was going to face the client, as far as like last minute tweaks and stuff, which was fun. Chapstick, 3M, Lego, Nestle, all of those on the screen there, we kind of touch a lot in Minneapolis. Best Buy is my primary account that I work on, but I have touched kind of a little bit of everything. So this is just kind of briefly a couple of the projects that I've worked on. We did some really awesome creative work for Amazon Fire TVs through Best Buy. The original packaging was really boring and not interesting. Same with the HDMI cable packaging with all the animal images. Again, making something that's kind of dull and boring like tech, and giving it some oomph and making it interesting is something that's really fun about my job. And then to the right is some more of that photo art direction that my role kind of shifted into as well later.
Sorry to
Best
interrupt,
Buy.
your slides aren't moving.
Oh, shoot. What? What slide were you seeing?
They were stuck on the main slide. They're the head one.
Wow, sorry. I was just talking and no one was seeing anything. Okay, let's try this again. Are you seeing anything remotely different?
Yep, you're on your grad slide.
Okay, perfect. So did we see any of this or no? Is it changing?
Yes, now it's on the Ocean Spray.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so that was for Advertising Club, our book that we had there. Sorry, that's frustrating for you guys to listen and not see anything. The street fair campaign that we did, where I'm working now, the clients that we work for. Okay, can you see what I'm talking about now? Okay, great. Yeah, probably a little easier to know what I'm talking about when you can visually see it. Yeah, so just a couple of the projects that I've worked on that have been pretty big within Best Buy. Our e-commerce photography on the right is a big one. Best Buy is very digital first focused. So shifting from packaging and doing something that's very tangible that you buy in a store versus making things appealing to the consumer online. Bridging that gap is really challenging and exciting. And it also kind of helps me stay relevant within what I do with graphic design, being able to touch the very digital e-commerce side as well as print and more of those traditional forms of design. So just a couple of little tidbits for people that are graduating and looking for jobs. The first one being, don't let job descriptions discourage you. I definitely, when I was first looking for jobs, kind of dismissed myself through reading different descriptions for jobs and didn't even apply. And honestly, I think that's a big reason why I wasn't getting anywhere. I was in my own way. And then when I finally said, screw it, I need a job, and just threw my stuff everywhere, kind of regardless of what the description was saying as far as like experience or very particular skill sets, that's when I started to really get some feedback and get somewhere with the job search. So that's a big one that I think could be helpful. Also knowing your worth, but being open-minded. You know, don't let yourself be taken advantage of as a new grad or, you know, being fresh out of school and not having as much professional experience, but also be open-minded to opportunities that could lead you to full-time employment, or as Allie and Tracy mentioned already, kind of those stepping stones to get you kind of where you want to be. So being very open-minded, I think, with that is really important. And then a big one that even me and one of my art directors I was talking about had mentioned, especially if you're interested in an agency setting, reach out to the agency that you're interested in and request an informational interview. Super easy. They're usually really willing to do it. And then you can actually meet some of the people that are within the agency, get a tour of the building if they have one now. I guess with COVID, that might be kind of iffy now, but it's a good way to meet people. And then when you put in a resume, they'll recognize your name and be able to place a face to a name. So those are kind of my little tips once you graduate for maybe landing a job. And that is all I have. So I will pass it back to you, Mary.
All right, great. Thank you, Jess. So, Allie, during your presentation, you had a question for you. It said, did you have any hand in managing the fallout from the January retail investing spike?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. We didn't have necessarily a hand in it, but obviously our market strategists and economists were all over it, because a lot of our job too is that clients go to their advisors for, looking for answers, and then the advisors go to our market economists and strategists. And obviously there is a lot to unpack there. If somebody's unfamiliar, you may have seen headlines related to the GameStop stock frenzy earlier this year. That led to the spike in retail investing. And some of the thoughts that our strategists had was that even though the fund managers and hedge funds that were short selling the GameStop stocks were feeling acute pain when this was happening, ultimately what's unfortunate is that while it's fun to root for the underdog and think the individual investor is doing well in this case, it's really hard to justify the prices of a stock like GameStop, and that their fundamentals just aren't in place to keep it that high. So ultimately, individual investors are going to get burned pretty severely. Obviously, you're going to have those few winners, but as we saw, and what did ultimately happen, is that the stocks dropped back down. So more often than not, those individual investors lost a lot of money, whereas the hedge funds obviously have so much money that they hate to lose any money, but it doesn't hurt them as much as the individual does. So that is just like a basic thought on what happened in January. And yeah, I know it's still rising, but the fundamentals, they're never going to, it probably isn't going to get all the way back up to where it did. I mean, that's at least our economist thoughts. Of course, you're going to have varying degrees of thoughts on this, but our economists generally take a pretty conservative approach, and just think that, yeah, you can get in on it, but don't do it if you're in a pinch and you can't afford to take a loss on the stock.
Sounds good. Thank you for answering that, Allie. We also had some questions sent in via the survey. One of them, all of you can feel free to answer whatever you think. One of those is, what is your advice for keeping up with the trends in advertising, PR, and design?
I guess I can start with that. Whenever I have downtime at work, I'm always on Twitter. We follow like Ad Age, Adweek, all those major players, constantly reading stories about what's happening in the industry. So definitely follow those people on social media and just keep up whenever you have some free time, would be my advice.
Yeah, and then I would tag on to that and say research is huge. As far as like what we do with Best Buy, it's a lot of research into competitor products, and being able to stick with them as far as being interesting or having a platform that is really going to be visually and like legibly like best for customers to view and like purchase your products. So I would say research is a big one, and being aware of who your competitor is always.
Definitely. Thank you for answering that. They also had a follow-up question regarding that question. from your experience, what are some of the things to look out for, good and bad, in companies when you're searching for a job?
I can take this one. I would say, obviously, I've only been at Ameriprise, so my scope is a little limited in that sense. But I think the one thing I really underestimated when taking different roles was the importance of the leader that you have. So if you throughout your interviews, it's important to ask who will be your leader or who's your boss for this role, and usually they're going to be a part of your interview, but if they're not, you'd want to make sure to ask to speak to them, and don't undervalue the importance of that relationship. So obviously you can't always get all the personality and know everything about a person, but if you can tell, like, I don't think I would get along with this person, even if you love the job description, I can promise you it might not be worth it. Obviously, if you're in a pinch, you can give it a try, but leaders can make or break a role. And sometimes when I went through the leadership development program, there was a job that I honestly really hated the work. Like, I didn't enjoy it, but I loved my boss so much that I would have happily stayed in that role just because going to work was so fun. So I'd say watch for that, because in a good or bad way, who your leader is.
I totally agree with Allie. That's a big one.
Definitely. So I think we have time for one more. Another one sent in is, what experiences or skills do you feel directly correlate to being successful in your specific fields?
I can take this one. Ultimately, at the end of the day, people want to like working with you. If you are a pain in the butt, or you are not a team player, or you're not willing to step up to the plate, it's going to be really difficult to be successful, especially in marketing, advertising, these communication fields. Communication is huge. It's everything. So building relationships with people and having integrity and being good at your job is like paramount for sure. You can be the best designer, writer, have the most experience in PR, but if you suck to work with, nobody wants to, work with you.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that is crucial, is just being somebody you want to be around. And in PR especially, it's a people role. I mean, your entire ability to be successful in PR is building strong relationships. I mean, if I send out a pitch to a reporter and they can tell right away they don't like me, they're not going to respond to me. And then I'm not going to get anybody secured an opportunity. Same with your coworkers. If they like you, they'll respond to you much quicker, especially in a big company where people don't, there's a lot of people are getting a lot of emails. If I see somebody's name come through my inbox and I'm getting hundreds of emails a day, if I know I'd like that person, I'm going to respond to them quicker. So even your efficiency goes up if you can develop those relationships with your coworkers and anybody you're interacting with.
Well, thank you, Allie, Tracy, and Jess for sharing, and everyone who attended. Next up, we're going to have the social media advertising and management session after a short 10-minute break on the same Zoom link. During the break, we'll continue to play the department video and the sponsor video, and the social media advertising and management session takes off at 3:50. So thank you, Jess, Tracy, and Allie.